Hi, this is David Clark, and today I'm going to be talking very briefly about the Killdozer Incident. So, for starters, the man involved and the man behind the idea of the Killdozer was Marvin Heemeyer. He was born October 28th in 1951. Now, it is a little bit of a spoiler, but Marvin Heemeyer is dead. He died June 4th, 2004, the day that the Killdozer went live. His occupation was he was a welder and an automotive repair shop owner, and we'll get a little bit more into that and how that's important to the story. One of his most important quotes that he said was, "Sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things." He said this to one of his friends right before the Killdozer went live and he started tearing down the streets. So a little bit of information about the Killdozer. So the Killdozer was a bulldozer that Marvin modified in such a way to be a bulletproof, unstoppable machine to cause as much destruction as possible in the least amount of time. So the make of the bulldozer was a Komatsu bulldozer. It's a D335A bulldozer by standard. The way that Marvin acquired this was he purchased it on a public auction for about $16,000. Now, there's a lot of other public auctions that are happening where these bulldozers and other large pieces of machinery are available for anybody in the general public to purchase. And Marvin specifically purchased his Komatsu bulldozer on July of 2002, which was just about a year and a half before the Killdozer incident. Later referred as the MK tank, which stood for Marv's Komatsu tank. And a lot of people in the true crime community will eventually refer to it as the MK tank. So over 1.5 years, Marvin made a bunch of additions to his Killdozer, one of which being an M82 semi-automatic rifle, as well as an FNC assault rifle, a Ruger Mini 14, and then armed inside, when he sealed himself in, was a Magnum 357 and a Kel-Tec P11 pistol. These were used as his sidearms and would later be the cause of death to him. And over the year and a half, he also added 2.5-inch bulletproof steel plates all around the outside perimeter of the tank, as well as insulated with concrete bricks and other fiberglass material to make it as bulletproof as possible. He also ended up using bonded bulletproof plexiglass around places where he would put cameras where he was able to look out and see what was around him as he was on his destructive rampage. So for a little bit of visual context, this is what the Killdozer looked like after the incident. You can see all of the rubble that is in front and to the sides and on top of it. He left the treads mostly available. He has a little bit of additions on the side that are covering up the treads so they're not disableable. The shovel or the scoop of the bulldozer is almost entirely intact, but the major part that is referred to as the tank is all of the steel that is surrounding the cab and the engine and all of the important parts that are allowing the tank to still be driven. So a little bit more about the incident. The incident happened on June 4th of 2004, and it started at 2:15 p.m. in Granby, Colorado. So what the citizens of Granby, Colorado weren't expecting is at 2:15 to be walking down the street and this massive war machine basically storms down the street, destroying police cars and buildings and threatening to run people over. Luckily, it was slow enough and it didn't cause any harm to people, and they were all able to get out of the way. So at the very end of the 2 hours and 7-minute rampage, only one person ended up dead, and that ended up being Marvin, who ended up taking his own life after being sealed inside of his machine. Now, during those 2 hours and 7 minutes, and luckily nobody was injured or killed, he did do roughly $7 million worth of damage to a bunch of buildings, and we'll get into all those who were affected by those buildings, which roughly equals about $12 million today with inflation. So the targets of the victims. So there were quite a few buildings that were actually affected by the Killdozer, that were destroyed by it. The first one being the town hall. This was probably the number one big building that drew a lot of attention to what happened. The next one would be the Sky High newspaper office, which were all advertising on the Killdozer incident at the time. The Gamble's General Store, which was another popular place for all of the citizens of Colorado. The Maple Street Builders, which we'll get into a little bit. They had a little bit tie to the Granby, Colorado concrete plant, which is one of the motives. The Mountain Parks Electric Company, the Liberty Savings Bank, the Copycat Graphics, and a few other buildings with a little less importance that were just happened to be in the way of the destructive episode. Now for motives, Granby, Colorado concrete plant. This was probably the number one motive and the thing that set him off in the end. As Marvin owned his own auto repair shop, it was a small ma-pa privately owned establishment. This Granby, Colorado concrete plant would undermine his auto repair shop in a way that it would put it outside of the line of view and make patrons have to go a little bit of a back road. So ergo, he'd be losing business. And one of the other reasons that he probably chose the Killdozer in the end was he originally bought the bulldozer to do some work on it and eventually sell it back as a flip sale. And after he bought the bulldozer and did some work on it, he actually couldn't get rid of it. He tried to auction it off many times, but wasn't able to get anybody to purchase this bulldozer as it was a secondhand item. That's going to be my presentation on the Killdozer incident. Again, my name is David Clark. Thank you so much.